Hello and welcome to the Be Strong podcast, Ep.4. I'm Kostoru.
Hi, I'm Tom.
And today we're basically going to be fielding a lot of questions that you guys have sent in. So obviously thanks for sending those. And if you see us looking over this way, it's because we're doing a live feed. My phone is sideways. So if you guys are saying anything and we are ignoring you, it's because I can't read sideways. But if you see me like this, then that is why. If you see Tom like that, it's because he has a sore neck and his neck is just like that.
It's just the default
position.
Yeah,
that is just where the neck is.
So
Tom, what's new? How have you been getting on?
Yeah, good mate. What can I say? Been really busy with work. Actually training quite a lot more, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's been good. Injured my neck, but I've been doing some good bits of training. We've been paying a handyman at the house at the moment. It's a nightmare, honestly, because we're doing some bathroom work and other things. And I left the house today and I gave him a list of flipping 6 jobs to do. And I came back and it only done jobs 1, 3 and 5. Because apparently he only does odd jobs.
Oh, he beat me to it.
That joke.
Touche.
You weren't sure where that was going, were you?
Yeah, I was like, what is it?
Good.
So that's well delivered, that. In terms of what I've been getting up to, I don't know if I told you, but earlier in the week, Hayley left me because she got fed up of my gambling addiction. But it's okay because I won her back. Hey! Now we've got those out of the way.
This is a thing.
Yeah.
Also, you're getting congratulations, mate.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. That is promise from my dad, who was actually there. Cheers, Dad. I can actually wave to you guys as well. Oops, I don't want to do that. Like I said, we had a lot of questions come in through the question box, so I figured we'd kind of tackle through this. And as the live feed is going, you can send in some more questions. We will obviously try and tackle those assuming that we can read them sideways. So starting from the top, this one did make me laugh because it's a pretty good question, to be fair. Lower belts trying advanced things like buggy chokes and heel hooks before they really get a good grasp of the basics. So Tom, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I notoriously have been screamed and shouted at for heel hooking a black belt in the gi nowadays. So we know my thoughts on it. No, I think basics are great, and it's all fine and good sometimes when people say, oh, well, you need to know the basics. But if you've got a submission that works and you can do it safely, mint. I think the only thing... Buggy chokes I'm more chill with. Heel hooks is slightly different, just because of the risk of heel hooks. I think, particularly if you're a new person and you're doing it on new people, that's quite dangerous. Because not really understanding the mechanics of it. That being said, I think there's a responsibility there for instructors as well, just to lay out a framework. If they're going into a gym and they're doing that and the instructor's fine with it, that's on them. But I don't think it's up to the student at like a very beginner level to decide what they can and can't do. I think that should be dictated by the person who's running the club, just making sure that they're doing things safely.
Yeah, it's the best way. I mean, like I say, if you're learning in an environment where it's relatively safe, so for example, like Tom said, 2 white belts learning to heel hook each other, probably not the best idea. But if you have someone more experienced, then you're going to learn in a more safe environment. The thing I would say on that, right? So it's things like buggy chokes, right? As much as some people that enjoy them will like take umbrage to it, they're very gimmicky, right? And this actually came from speaking with someone at Empire just gone about Shane Curtis's match with Ben Bennett, which you definitely need to talk about because it was a great match. Mm-hmm. But it was obviously Shane was in bottom side, kind of turned away from Ben, looking for the Goth lock. And someone said to me, it's like, if your game plan is basically to let them get 3/4 of the way to your back to try and attack something, it's a bit gimmicky and it's very high risk. So that buggy choke, for it to be effective, someone has to have passed your guard and basically be pinning you. It has a place, but if someone's passing your guard regularly and getting side control, there are other things, in my opinion, that you should be prioritising and addressing before you put all the energy into the buggy choke. I.e., why are they smashing past your guard and getting side control? Yeah. That said, when it comes to things like heel hooks, I do believe it's worth learning them at a lower belt because eventually they are going to be a big part of what you're doing, right? Especially if you're competing at a higher level. Heel hooks, they've been kind of at the forefront of the meta for quite some time, probably 5 years or more now. And if you get to brown belt, black belt, and then start learning heel hooks, compared to someone that's got it as part of their game because they've been learning from a white belt, even if they haven't been using it in comp, you're going to be playing catch up. and it's just going to make your life way harder. So I would advise learning those, but like Tom said, just in an environment that is safe, so you don't break each other, because they are higher risk.
I think as well it comes down to, I had an incident fairly recently where I was rolling with someone. We were rolling no-gi, and he felt like he was, and you roll with someone, you're like, they're not a beginner, but they're not like really good.
Yeah.
And you kind of grade them in your head. But I was like, I feels like he's a blue belt. So anyway, he shot for like a bit of a heel hook on me. And anyway, I'd wrapped his heel, and then as I wrapped his heel, I felt him just dive over me, and I'd let go as quick as possible. And I think it's also understanding to such an extent, like you were saying, teaching it is understand. I'm not trying to sound like John Danaher, but breaking mechanics.
Yeah.
And understanding, when we look at someone like Ryan Hall when he was fighting BJ Penn. Wrong way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying BJ Penn's an amateur. I'm just saying, if you go the wrong way, you're going to tear that knee apart.
Yeah.
And so it's about just safely applying that in an environment and understanding the concepts, rather than just teaching the submission in isolation.
Yeah, 100%. And like I say, in that scenario there, had that white belt been against someone that was less experienced, that didn't know to let go of that, you're talking like catastrophic injury.
Yeah, 100%.
Because if they throw themselves the wrong way when their heel is basically buried in the floor, then it's going to be bad, We've had one, this is quite a general one, right? And for me, this one is only going to have like sort of one answer. So, biggest weaknesses or problems you're seeing in BJJ practitioners. The biggest weakness or problem I see is consistency. So people that aren't going enough or aren't going for long enough. Without the consistency, you won't get anywhere. So there's people that will like come and do a class and then they'll fall out of it for a bit and they'll go back and just on and off and on and off. Those are the people that aren't going to make the progression, because they're just not being consistent enough. And that you can apply that framework to pretty much anything in life. You have to be consistent, work at something consistently. Whether it's getting stronger, you need to be consistently attending the gym. Getting better and more comfortable using your skills in BJJ, you've got to practice them. And if you're not consistent, you're not getting enough mat time, you're gonna fall behind. And that is the biggest issue I see, the biggest weakness I see, is the lack of consistency.
I will answer this question from the perspective of a physio, and not as a coach, because I'm not a coach yet, but understanding that you are not unstoppable, and that there are better times to walk away and not train. So, for example, I've had a really annoying neck injury for about 6 weeks, and it peaked about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I went to training the other day, last Thursday. I was training with Josh at IMA. Shout out to those guys, because their gym's amazing. Yeah,
we definitely need to talk about that.
And I did sort of 2 or 3 rounds, and at that point I could feel that pain creeping up just a little bit, and I just sat down to Josh. I said, I think I'm done, mate.
Yeah.
My brain's like going, you'll be okay, you'll be fine, you've had some good rounds in, but like when you're training, the pain of your injury starts to go away when you're training, and you always pay for it after. So I think my biggest weakness, I guess, in answer to the question, is people losing perspective in the long term, in the short term, trying to get a really good hard rolling, and then it just shuts them out for weeks and weeks. Jake Goldthorpe, shout out to Jake, said something the other day when we were training, and he said, it's like going to the pub and saying you're not going to drink, turning up to training sometimes.
Yeah.
So there are just times it's better to avoid going. So I remembered that. It's funny. Made me laugh. Next thing, someone's buying you a rum and coke and you're 7 drinks in.
I love watching Jake after competitions, because he's like on the lash straight away. It's so funny.
After he won the Grapple Fest, we went to buy like a rum and coke. I'm like, do you want a double? He's like, yeah.
Go on, Jake. Shout out to Jake. And then we've got one very controversial one. Is Danny O'Brien. So Danny is a white belt from our gym. Shout out to Danny. Is he on steads? Well, thing with Danny that I've noticed recently, right, is that he has a very significant and very sudden growing spurt, very specifically on his ear, which is pretty manky and collied now. I mean, that could be from all the jits, but it could also be that he's taking very localized hormones just in the ear, to get the look.
Or he could be doing that thing where he gets a wet towel and give himself a collie.
If he is, then hopefully he'll smash the British Open coming up.
Oh yeah, someone's trying to pitch for
trying to sell me
us
geese.
geese and stuff online.
Quality manufacturer.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not going to buy any of that. But
thanks for the offer. Hello, bro. Unfortunately, it's a no from us.
Yeah, you can throw more comments in. It'll boost us on the on the ratings and whatnot. But I'm still not going to buy any of that, I'm afraid. Yeah, so hopefully if Danny is on the gear, because you've got a 25-man bracket, which is a lot.
That's mega.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of matches.
Battle Royale.
Yeah, which like for me, if I have to do anything over 2 matches in a day, I'm already grumpy about that. Like,
right, the important thing we need to talk about is why can you do 10 rounds in the gym and you literally do 4 matches at a comp and it kills you?
This actually filters into one of the questions, so we'll jump ahead to this, right? So there was one question: should you go rough with your training partners in prep for comps so they're used to it, right? So this is a good question, and it's a like, you think on the surface of it, it's a simple one to answer. Like, yeah, of course you should, but there's always a but to it, right? So you do need to mirror competition intensity, because people are always going to fight you harder than you do in the gym generally, right? But even if you have hard rounds in the gym, in my opinion, the biggest kind of difference is the adrenaline that you don't get in the gym unless you specifically try and recreate the environment. So you can do things like this, right? Which they sound a bit goonish, but they do work. So we used to, like when I was training for MMA fights, for example, you have 2 people rolling, in this case, because it's jiu-jitsu, and then everyone else around shouting, making noise, simulating the environment that you're going to be in the competition, because it's noisy in a comp. There's a lot of people watching, and you get people watching you, so you get used to people watching you, and you get kind of used to that situation. I think that will go a long way, as well as the intensity of the round, to kind of mentally prepare you for what you're about to face.
That's cool advice. I think that's a really good way to do it. I remember before Henry Cejudo fought, last fight before he retired.
Oh, just recently against Aljo, or
but no, before that, who did he fight before? Just remind me.
Was it Dominic Cruz or was it TJ Dillashaw?
He fought, and it was Dominic Cruz last, wasn't it? But he was saying in his training camp they'd wake up at the same time, and every time they would like have the walkout music, they'd replicate some of that environment. I think that was really, really a really sensible approach. Even like the sleep routine, just getting familiar. And it comes to comps, because I had loads of plans of doing competitions this year, just with some injuries and other things. But the plan is just...
Hey, Leslie's in. Hey, Leslie.
Hello, Leslie.
Long time no see.
The thing is just reps.
Yeah.
Just do more.
Yeah.
It's like when I used to slide down mountains, the more I did it, the less scared I got. And then you just do reps and reps and reps and become familiar with that process.
100%. And like I say, like, comp intensity, if like, you can't... So you should do some rounds that are at comp intensity. So you're trying to put everything into it. You're trying to simulate that fatigue that you get. So you train hard with training partners. You can't train like that all the time, because you're likely to get injured or burnt out. So it's basically about picking your days and also picking your training partners. So generally, the biggest thing you want is people that aren't going to injure you and people that you're not going to injure. There's certain people that if you roll with them at that kind of intensity, is fairly certain that one of you is going to get broken. So as long as you've got sensible training partners that aren't going to injure you, then yeah, you want to have some days that you're absolutely like replicating that kind of comp intensity, so you are used to it, your body's used to like 100%ing everything. But again, you can't do it every sparring sesh, because you will just get yourself wiped out and you'll pick up injuries.
Not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Exactly. It's a balance is everything. We also had the question, so strength and conditioning for grappling. So this one's quite an interesting one in terms of the divide that you'll find in it, right? So hypothetically, right, you've got 2 days a week to do strength and conditioning for grappling. Better to focus on the big 3 lifts, so being your squat, bench and dead, or more sport specific movements. So what were your takes on that, Tom?
I'm thinking about that. If I had 2 days a week, I think one component of that, or a big component of that, is conditioning.
Yeah.
Just general like metabolic conditioning, and making sure you can not replicate the demands of grappling, because you can't, but playing around at different intensities, and replicating those highs and lows that come with it. We might differ on this. I'm not as drawn into some of the big three stuff for things like jiu-jitsu, given that you have 2 days.
Yeah.
Maybe pick 1 or 2 of those, but I wouldn't be training it like a powerlifter. I think there's a very old school approach, and if you look at some of the clinical, well, not clinical, but sports science research from the 70s and 80s, everything in S&C stemmed off the back of Russian training for Olympic lifting and powerlifting.
Yeah.
And I still think we've kept that ethos in. There's a really interesting thing to look at called the internal strength model, which is produced by a guy called Dre Spina, who runs like functional range conditioning. He works with a lot of MMA fighters and jiu-jitsu athletes, and his principle, and I really like it, is load the tissue how it's going to be loaded in these events. So it's conditioned for those things. So if you're a jiu-jitsu guy and stuff, like grip-based, isometric-based work, build time under tension in the positions that replicate time under tension. I think if you get someone in the gym and get them to lift heavy 2 days a week, they're always going to get some generalized strength benefit. But if you want to really ramp that up, I would say be linking some conditioning with very specific tissue-based conditioning. So one thing I would think about, and I have a lot of the guys do, is like gripping-based routines with med balls, weighted carries, farmers carries. The way, if I had like the ultimate jiu-jitsu athlete, I'd think athlete on bottom, bodybuilder on top.
Yeah.
It's like body armour, them on top, so they're more resilient to those sorts of issues. And lower body, they don't need to be massive, they just need to be strong.
Yeah. And like, to be fair, like my take on if you have like big three here and you have like functional there, is it's going to be in the middle somewhere, right? Because the problem with functional training is that people take it to the nth degree where it's no longer functional, and you lose the purpose what you initially went to, which is to get stronger or more conditioned for a specific thing. You just get better at doing a particular movement. So examples of that will be like, I don't know, Joel Seedman, for example, all that kind of shots fired, that kind of stuff, right? Where they're doing like a very specific niche balancing thing, where most of the training in that particular session is learning to do the exercise, like mastering the skill of doing the exercise, because it's so ridiculously like imbalanced and everything like that, where you like they're not really getting stronger in the way they would if they were doing one of the big three, for example.
Just to interrupt you on the Joel Seedman thing, also when you look at one of his exercises, as someone who used to do a load of weightlifting and you coaches it, how long must it take to just set up one of these exercises?
Exactly, that's another massive thing that gets overlooked, is time. Time to work out. Like if you've got someone that's like juggling jiu-jitsu competition around work, which most people are, and you've got an exercise that is going to take you like 10 minutes to set up to do one exercise before we move on to the next one, which takes another 10 minutes. You're talking like workouts that you can't finish in the time duration that you've got, which is, again, useless, basically. When it comes to functional exercises for grappling, right, things like pulls, so like variety of pulls, like chin ups, like horizontal pulls, they're all going to have benefits. You can drill down on how functional you want to make them. For example, like a chin up bar, for example, you can say, okay, what if I use like grips that are more gi based, for example, so you're hanging from there, you can argue that's going to improve your grip strength a little bit more, but you're still working the same sort of movement pattern that you need to be strong in. So like the additional benefit that you get for the grip hanging on the thing, you could argue that it could come in handy for a specific thing, but the movement itself is kind of where you want to get strong. Same thing, like I'm a big proponent of single leg things like lunges, just purely because driving out of the bottom position from a takedown is one of the most needed abilities when it comes to doing takedowns, and something like that, having like been able to drive up from the bottom position, which is basically where you land. If you shot and your knee hits the floor, you drive up out of it. It's pretty similar to a lunge. You don't have to make it more functional than that. Let's have someone hanging on the back of me with a band so I've got resistance.
The one I never quite got was John Kavanagh, when he was doing some of the stuff where they're slamming on a punching bag and someone's holding on a rope. Like, what are you trying to train them to stop the ref pulling them off?
Yeah.
Like, it was some really odd concepts sometimes, I think, start to emerge.
Those kind of things are, like, say, they're like fun to do for like conditioning, but for like purpose of actually fighting, probably not beneficial. It's not going to help you. Like, it's like I say, you don't get resistance pulling you back from there. You get resistance pushing you from underneath. So you can have a pad man underneath padding you. That's a better way to do it. It's pretty risky. I've done that a lot with. So when I trained MMA fighters in London, I'd get a pair of pads and I'd pull guard and have people like hitting while I tried to grapple them. Very hard, very risky. You do end up catching a few. Yeah. So again, pretty functional, right? But risky when it comes to that. So yeah, my answer, which we stick to, the truth is I'd be kind of in between the two. You know, I wouldn't be featured on the big, specifically on the big three, although they will help you, because I think that overlooks like a lot of pulling things, and grappling's very pull dominant. And I wouldn't go too far down the functional training route, because like I say, you'll spend all your time getting good at a specific exercise and it won't carry over.
I think some of the functional stuff as well has just gone. It's the curse of social media. Everyone will take it to some degree to add some value on it. And like I remember when Amanda Nunes got some stick because she had some S&C coach and she was doing some like balancing and then overhead pressing, and like I understand that you're trying to challenge a system, but in reality, like let's use gripping for an example. Gripping on whatever grip, whichever hold, you see people do it with gi, with towels, whatever. I can guarantee if you can rip 200 kilos off the floor in a deadlift, you haven't got an issue with your grip.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's stuff like that where it's like, you know, with your training, me when I'm trying to get people in, is it's cost benefit. And when someone starts to see me for an assessment, my next question is, what are we aiming for and how much time can you give me? Because you could fill everyone's day with enough exercises, but like, what's the most valuable information I can give you in that short time frame?
Exactly. And you make a good point as well when it comes to like cost benefit and like the amount of time you've got to put to increase something. Let's take a deadlift, for example, as a good example. Let's say you're maxing out at 200 kilos. For you to go from 200 kilos to 205 can take a long time.
Yeah.
And is it worth the time you're putting in to get that extra 5 kilos? Like, will it help your grappling massively to go from 200 to 205? Probably not. You know, for the amount of effort that you're going to put into it, you know, it's probably not going to be beneficial. You can probably use that time elsewhere. And obviously, if you're just starting deadlifting, you're going to start to make the increases fairly quickly. Yeah. So, you know, talking more about like an experienced lifter. But yeah, once you're kind of reaching your strength potential, in order to increase at the end range, you're going to have to put a lot of time into it. And the truth is, the benefit that you're going to find on the mat for that little bit of extra is probably not going to be worth the time that you have to do specifically to get there.
And how much can you express strength over 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's another thing. Because you do one deadlift, you put the weight down, you sit around for 3 to 5 minutes before you do your next rep.
The good old days.
Yeah, the powerlifting days. You know, that's a good point, right? When it comes to conditioning, right? Because you're talking about in grappling, you could have a burst of maximal intensity, being an explosive scramble, and then a prolonged isometric hold where you're still exerting force, but you need to recover during that point. But you can't relax. It's not like you take someone down and you go sit at the side of the mat and rate and recover and then come and take him down again. You take him down, you've got to keep moving, right? So you've got to be able to switch from maximum explosivity to isometric, heavy pins, or relatively like slower paced movement, and recover while you're doing it, or at least maintain your output if you can't recover. You know, not that have your output drop off drastically. So like training at those intensities is tough, you know, but it is something you need to do. You can't just approach it with the powerlifter 1 rep mentality, because you've got to do a lot more than 1 reps in 5 minutes.
Well, this is the thing as well, like, it's going to sound a bit cocky if I say it, but you'll struggle to find a grappler in Yorkshire who can run 100 metres faster than me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't translate. I'm really good at tiring myself out in 10 seconds.
yeah.
This isn't a joke about my sex life either. But I think it's understanding where that conditioning comes from, and then also how they can use that, because I've started to even play around with some of the broken mat stuff. Is I will go relatively hard for 20-30 seconds and then find a position and sit in that position, recharge my batteries.
Yeah.
It's usually top mount because I like it. And then sit in that position and tell myself, because I can get really comfortable there, but then if there's a scramble and I'm in that mindset where I'm like, oh, I'm steady away, I'm like, I need to be able to switch out of that and be like, it's go time. You've got to fight to get this position back. You can catch up later. Yeah, 100%. It's like, and you get more used to it as you do it in terms of when you can rest and when you need to work. So you'll find like the stereotypical white belt will always be
I need to work, and that's why they gas out. The more experience you get, the more you realise, okay, I can rest at this point, I can work at this point. Because 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes at flat out intensity, no one can do it. Like, you're gonna be tired. So like, you'll find the more experienced grappler will be the one that can pace themselves, realise when they can relax, and just have a better control of like their own energy balance through experience. Experience is where you're gonna get that. Now, this one did make me laugh. So, I've heard that having whopping biceps is good for finishing chokes. Should I start hitting the curls? Now, the funny thing about this was it came from someone that does have whopping biceps that I have competed against and is very strong. So, please don't hit the curls because that will be horrific if you get any stronger.
This person used to coach me, and I remember just getting one of his things as a cradle. And I remember the first time as like a brand new blue belt, I got cradled, and I was just going... nothing, zero. So that person does not need any more bicep power. It's not true. Don't do it. Don't do more curls.
But for anyone else listening to this, it is worth doing some curls because grappling is very pull dominant. But there is a lot of like bicep engagement, like just holds and pulling people in. So yeah, it does come in handy. And like I say, when it comes to a lot of chokes and things like that, there is a lot like a big bicep component. You can argue that if you do it well, you kind of transition the force down to your lats and your core. But there is bicep involvement. So yeah, definitely don't miss out on your curls. Except for this particular person who doesn't need any more curls. Yeah, you don't need any more curls. You're strong enough. So we've done that one. This one came in from one of the girls. Thoughts on men training with women. So this has come from a point of view where she's had guys that have flat out refused to roll with her. So our take on that, like our thought process of rolling with girls, what we adapt, anything like that, and thoughts on guys that flat out just refuse to roll with women.
The refusing to roll with women one can be sometimes a quite sensitive subject because there's definitely some religious components to that as well.
That's what I said, yeah.
And so like there's certain gyms I've trained at in Bradford with like strong Muslim contingents and people who are quite faithful there, and that's from their perspective is a way of showing respect, although from a female's perspective it might not be perceived as that. Personally, in my view, I'll roll with anyone. I don't see that. I think if I was to refuse a roll with a girl, I would, in my view, I'd perceive that as being a little bit disrespectful.
Yeah.
But each to their own. I think rolling with women, and I try not to sound patronising when I say this, but just like be respectful and match strength because it's just an advantage. The best rolls, and I'd hate to sound like I'm sounding patronising again, but some of the best rolls I've had are females where I've switched my head off and then I've switched my muscle connection off, like dialed it back 30%, and I've had some really technical rounds. The first time I did it, this is maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, there's a blue belt in my club. I was like, Tom, just back it off and just roll, and she absolutely battered me because she's just better than me at that point.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool experience because I realised there's actually quite a lot to learn there, and also it makes it a nice training environment.
There is that, yeah. So like my advice being like, if you're a guy that hasn't had the chance to roll with many women, or you're nervous about, am I going to be too heavy-handed, that type of thing, the best way to approach it is obviously you don't want to approach it like a wet blanket and offer no resistance, because then it's not beneficial to the woman training with you. And obviously you don't want to go in there and be like just a big meathead and freaking like try and put all your weight on them and be heavy if you're significantly bigger and stronger. The best bet is I treat rolling with women as if I'm rolling with someone that is lighter than me. Say where I treat a lighter guy. Like, I wouldn't try and be like an absolute dick, with the exception being like Jake Goldthorpe, who, if I do this to Jake, he just like smashes me up. So I have to try and be heavy against Jake. But with anyone apart from Jake, if I'm massively heavier than the person, I try not to just use all of my weight and all of my strength, because it's not really going to benefit me massively, and they're not going to get anything out from it other than just carrying my heavy ass weight on them, So I approach the same way with women. Like, I know that I'm bigger and that I'm heavier, so I try not to be like just huge and heavy. I try and roll skillfully, and you realise, like, let's say rolling with Emma, for example, like when you try not to be just like some big heavy lummox and you roll with her, but the skill level is really good. You have to be really on point defensively and offensively with your transitions, because otherwise you're going to get tuned up.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that's the thing, especially you also get, it's a bit of a shortcut to get better as well, because you don't have to put in as much effort, and you can take that mindset out of it, and you can just kind of feel the role and see where it's going and see what opportunities are there and what stupid moves you made along the way.
Exactly, yeah. So you get, like I say, you get pretty good feedback on it, because especially rolling with women as well, tending to be on average more flexible than guys, they'll be able to throw up attacks that you don't get to see as often rolling with guys. And obviously that's a broad statement to make. It's not going to be universal, but it is relatively common that the woman's going to be more mobile than me, for example. So you get attacked from new positions. So you realise that, this position that I've been kind of relaxing in, I'm not really safe here. I'm just safe from a lot of guys. Not all guys, because every now and again you're going to find a guy that will come out and exploit that. But you might not get that highlighted to you unless you roll with a woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I would say, in my experience and speaking to a few friends who do jiu-jitsu, one thing I don't do a lot of when I'm rolling with women, and this is just I don't spend a lot of time controlling top mount.
Yeah.
A few women who I train with find that position quite anxiety inducing. I don't know why. I think even Fionn mentioned it actually when she was at the seminar. So I get to a position, I'm just like, right, I'm trying not to smother them there, I'll just do that. I don't know why, but that's something I try and be considerate of, particularly because a few people have mentioned that to me.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, this was quite funny, it's a random tangent, but during the competition just gone, the Midland sub only, it was quite a quiet environment. So we were talking about loud environments. This is quite quiet, so you can hear the grapplers, you can hear like the coaching, and I'm quite vocal when I was coaching. So Heather had her match, and I was coaching her through it. They ended up right in front of me, so I was giving like very like precise things for Heather to do. It's like, okay, I want you to flatten her right shoulder out here. She got to mount, and then the girl that like kind of shelled everything up, so there wasn't any kind of gaps to exploit. And I was like, so from here, Hev, if you can get your shoulder and just bring it over her face, you can smother her a little bit. And then there's like this universal gasp like from the audience, like inside here. And I was like, be mean, and everyone started like chuckling. And I was like, sorry guys. But it is true. Like that position, it is anxiety inducing. And from that point, knowing that, I was trying to get Hev specifically to do it, because in comp you got to be mean.
Yeah.
Also had, this was a good one actually, training around family life. How do both of us manage your time to get a good amount of both? So right off the bat with this one, I will say that I'm probably not in the same boat as most people, because working as a self-employed PT, I get a lot of control over my time that work for the standard 9 to 5. So it's easier for me to fit it all in at present anyway. So yeah, be self-employed, be your own boss. Would be my advice.
I'll just give my perspective. So I have 2 children. I have a job that I probably work between sort of 45 and 50 hours a week, like 40 hours of clinic time, and the rest just notes and admin and other things. And I also need to clean a house and do shopping, as well as fit my training in. And it comes to a point where I heard a phrase the other day and I really liked it. All of us are busy, but then everyone will always be busy. And so you'll either be busy running around after stuff and trying to like chase after things, and there's people like super stressed out all the time, or you'll be busy like placing time on high value things that you want to do. And so in terms of fitting it around family, like family for me is a really high value time, so I want to spend that time, and I allocate that time to the point where I treat everything like an appointment. So I'll put the gaps in my diary, because I want my wife to feel like she's supported, that she's not a sports widow. So that comes down to, I think, communicating what my expectations are around training and what I want to do. So at the moment I'm doing probably 3 to 4 sessions a week, which is really, really nice. But then also maybe adjusting some of my expectations about what training looks like in those positions. So I struggled to get some no-gi time in, so I started my own club on a Sunday night. And realistically, that was one of the main drivers behind it, because it's 3 minutes down my road. I needed to set up a mat space, and then I just needed to do some social media stuff, and I build that up. and I knew that would give me more time in a time that doesn't disrupt my family because it runs from 8 till 9.
Yeah.
So I think, in short, answering that question is understanding what your realistic priority is and running that between your partner, and then also understand this is for me and my kids. Like, understand that I'll never get that time back when they're young, and so I don't want to sports widow them just yet. And so a few training sessions a week I'm okay with. If I had, more, if it was up to me, I'd probably do 5 or 6 times, but I value time with that family a little bit more, and I get better in 3 or 4 sessions a week, and I moderate that intensity because I can't put out that intensity 4 times a week as well.
Yeah. And it's true. It's like you say, it's basically finding the balance, and the balance might shift depending on how old your kids are, if you're competing, if you're not competing, what they're doing, what their hobbies are. Like it is a fine balancing act. So depending on your shift, so if you're working shifts, for example, that can obviously present other demands. So like if you're working all night, sleeping during the day when they're awake, there are a lot of things that can kind of influence that. So the best advice I can give you is, if you have it in your power to influence your job to a degree where it fits your life, then do it. Make the most of that. And if you don't, then basically accept the fact that you're going to have to sacrifice some training time to spend time with your family, and that's fine. That's a good thing. You should be spending time with your family, but realizing that missing the odd session here and there isn't going to let your game fall apart.
And I think it's making sure that it's like your own. Sounds really cheesy, but it's your own journey. Yeah. Because I don't have a club at the moment, but I'm still getting 4 training sessions in a week.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you're like, oh well, I should be turning up, and people need to see me training. I don't really care. I just want to get better, and that's okay with me. I've aligned myself with that. But what I say one thing, and I'll say it again, is if you don't know where your time, you lose track of time. Do you plan your time? Do you write it down? Because it's amazing how much time is lost when we don't allocate it. Yeah,
that is true, and it's probably why I am not very good at organising things, or in terms of I tend to double book myself a lot. Like outside of work is fine, any kind of social or anything like that. I tend to be a bit more scatty brained when it comes to that. So I've started putting them all in my calendar. So before I commit something, let me go and flick through and see what's going on. Which seems like basic practice, but it's something that I wasn't doing. And then I was realising that all the time's just getting away from me because I need to do this, but I've got so many things on.
One thing I found on the subject of time, if you'd have looked at me last year, I was stressed out of my mind. I am busier now than I've ever been. I'm busier than I was last year, but I just have the energy to do it because all of that time, all of the things I know I've got to do in my head are just sorted in that day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, great, I've got the energy for those things because my brain's not randomly worrying about things because I've not attacked them and trying to figure out where to put them. And I think that applies for jiu-jitsu and family and everything else. Is you'll be surprised by how much time you have.
Yeah. That's the thing. You'll be surprised how much time you waste. And I say waste. If you enjoy it, it's not really a wasted time, is it? But time that you waste, for me, for example, gaming and things like that. You can sink loads of hours into it. Now, again, you I use the term waste use loosely because I enjoy it, but you could be doing something more productive in that time.
But I also think the one of my goals in the last few months is actually to allocate time for fun.
But that is another thing, yeah.
Because I've probably been on the far end of that spectrum where I probably for months was like, what am I doing? What do I think's fun? Even going to jiu-jitsu, I'm like, no, it's just an objective. I need to get better at the thing I do. And one of my goals is every week I try and find 4 hours to game without my phone, and I can find that time, and I really enjoy that time.
Yeah.
So I think you need to, even with the family and the jiu-jitsu things, it's also you don't have to work and train. You can also fit time in for social lives because your life gets greatly enriched from those things too.
Yeah, that's it. And like I say, it is that was one of the things that struck me that Fiona said about jiu-jitsu. She doesn't always enjoy it because it's her job, right? So she'll be training, she doesn't want to go and stuff like that. And it's realising that if you get to the point where you're feeling burnt out with your hobbies, you might need to do something else, take a little bit of a step back and do something else so that you don't lose the passion for what you're supposed to love doing, that actually come from like Heather said as well. So obviously Heather training for a competition, just gone, and she was saying like she was hitting like open mats all over the place, training really hard, and she was like, God, my hobby, she's like, I get stressed at work and now my hobby is stressing me out. It's not what it's supposed to be doing,
Yeah. I feel that.
So yeah, it's about finding balance basically, and making sure you don't neglect enjoying yourself and enjoying life, because what's the point, otherwise you'd be probably miserable.
Yeah, because it's that thing, isn't it? Like, you're the only... I'm a better version of myself when I'm doing my hobbies to a healthy level. I have time to switch off. I'm finding joy and passion in my job. And if I go home and my insane 2-year-old is being the same as she is, I'm not ratty then, because I'm managing my energy and I'm not stressed out by it. But if, for example, that spectrum shifts and then your hobbies suddenly become like stressing you out and then your work stressing you out, you're probably not going to be a nice person to be around either.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that you want to turn up the best you can for your family. So
yeah, like I have brought 2 people into this world, so I kind of want to prioritise those a little bit.
Yeah, which is like horrifyingly scary thought when you think about it. Like you've got to mould this little sociopath into a respectable member of society, which is going to be hard.
And you never feel ready.
No.
I mean, I feel like I'm okay now. Like, Erin's done potty training now. This is my second, so I feel like until the teenagers, I'll have a good time, and then they'll just hate me. They'll have a man cave.
I think I won't get it as rough in teen years because he's a boy, and so he won't by default hate me, as I imagine that if I had a daughter she would. But yeah,
that's when I'll be training 9 times a week.
Yeah. That's when my competition life is going to take like a massive like step up in
Masters division, Masters.
Yeah, I'm going to be like Masters 5 or something like that. It's just one of those old like war horses that goes in and like tries to maul everyone, which is basically what I did in my comp just gone. In fairness, I was like I say, I approached it pretty much. I had in my mind kind of ideas of what I wanted to do, but once it had kind of kicked off, I basically kind of like reverted to what I normally do. Basically, it's like get top position, force half guard, pass half guard, finish. And that was basically like, you just old man jitsu basically, but it worked.
Best way, nothing flashy, mate. Just smash them down into the ground and it's game over.
Yeah, and it was like a pretty nasty neck crank at the end, which I'll have to show you when your neck is better, because it was...
Yeah, let's not do it now.
It was like, my neck is feeling sore. I don't know what I've done to it. It might be like sympathy pains, because it was...
Thanks, mate. I feel like, it's really connected.
It was like quite a nasty one. Also, what I mentioned we should speak about, we haven't spoken about yet, IMA.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, like, so obviously I haven't been up there yet, but you've been up there. I've heard the places look amazing inside.
Yeah, it's mega. I think the culture's really good, right? So, IMA, new gym in Seacroft. It's run by Liam Cann and his fiancée Yulia, and Stephen Priority, or Rolling Shutter, as it was. Josh Taylor's a coach there. Just good gym, man. Good vibe. Really, really friendly, open. I think one thing I like about jiu-jitsu, when it's done right, is it's very welcoming and there's no politics or bullshit.
Yeah.
And I've done a few sessions there, and everyone's super welcoming and friendly. And if you want some good coaching and you're up in Seacroft way, I mean, Josh for gi and no gi and Liam for no gi, it's not really a...
Good coaches there.
Yeah, really good level guys. And I think it'll grow into something quite big. And what you'll see is a big MMA contingent coming out of there as well, which will be nice.
Yeah, I've heard that the MMA side of it is actually like really busy at the minute.
Yeah. Which will be awesome. I think a few things going on. If you're feeling super brave, there's an ice bath in there, Jim. I was going to dabble in it, but Ultraflex has really loud music and a load of... Oh, question. How are they trying to say?
My brother's back doing BJJ at Powerhouse. Oh, yeah, sweet. He's loving to be back. Good.
Love it.
Man.
Get back on it. I got inside an ice bath and with loud music and bodybuilders in there, I'm like, no, it's not for me. When I used to ice bath a long time ago, would like break a hole in a river and just sit in it, and that was better. Because the other thing is, when it's minus 20 outside and you've stripped down to your pants, you're already cold.
Makes sense.
So when you get in the cold water, the transfer isn't as bad.
So at the gym that I go to, they've got a sauna and they've got cold showers. And it's something about, I'd rather jump in a cold ice bath than a cold shower. I don't know why.
Oh, really? I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
No.
It's something like having cold water splashed on me is just like, oh, it's so miserable.
It's for me, it's with the ice bath, it's the hands.
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay with anything else, but it's the hands. And it depends what I'm wearing on the bottom, because it's the balls as well.
Yeah.
And that, no, like hands and ankles, the really bony parts of your body, that you have to tell myself, Flo, after a minute, it'll be numb, so I'll be fine.
Yeah.
The first minute.
It's like, first minute is going to be the worst, and then you basically die. Susie, welcome back. No cold bath for me, thanks. Not from Susie, that's from Nat. I don't blame you, Nat. Cold bath, cold shower for me. It's cold shower for me. It's something about the cold water going on my head.
I have a cold shower every morning, and it's not because I'm like hustling it. I actually really enjoy it.
I just I can't. I need to. For my own mental toughness, I need to do it, but
you don't.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't. You're tough enough.
I don't want to. Also, I don't know if you've seen. Obviously, Susie's got the clear to be back training. I suppose you must have given her this. To be fair, now I think of it, which is great to see. So I'm glad you're back on the mat, Susie. Hope you're enjoying it, and that your hands haven't got too deconditioned from not doing gi.
Just smooth.
Yeah, it's like baby smooth hands that are now just like all gnarled and rooted from trees, that type of thing.
That's what you need, just the like contorted fingers. I feel like as a job as a physio and someone who does jiu-jitsu, the future's not great.
Yeah. Like my hands are they don't line up straight. Like my fingers are probably
no, we're not there.
It's not good.
After I broke my hand, I can't bend. So if I go like that, my right finger's fine, but my left always gets caught. So I have to do it fast to try and get it through.
That's quite funny, to be fair. Yeah, things we do, like the toll that it takes on your body.
What are you saying, Susie?
Drilling cleans this week. Drilling this week was a shock to my neck.
I bet it was.
Funny enough, like Tom was talking about his neck injury, and I've got my neck is sore. So join the club. It is. I don't know what I've done to my neck. What I'm thinking, even though it's quite delayed now, is that in my match I got snapped down pretty well.
Yeah, so that was a good snap down.
So I was like, the one thing with that snap down, I didn't, like, so he had me in a front headlock and dragged me down, kind of spun me, and I don't know how it happened, but like I felt like he foot swept me. Now my feet just come off the ground,
right?
And I remember like when I hit the ground, I was like, what am I doing on the ground? Like, it just completely took me by surprise. And I was like, right, I'm getting up. So basically, like, then just turned into a wrestler, got up and outside tripped him and took control.
Beautiful.
But there was that point, like, I literally remember when I got taken off the ground, I was like, how did that happen to me? Like, I don't understand. And watching it back, still can't quite figure out how my feet came off the ground. But it was just a very good snap down, I think.
Yeah, it was good. I'd have to watch that again. I just always remind me, and I've told this story probably before, but when I went to a judo comp, I won the first few matches against some really good guys, and I was like, yeah, this is it. And I was against a guy who's about 55, so I thought, right, I'm going to smash this guy, because I've beaten some good sort of brown and black belts. And then I stepped in. I thought I was going to get a tight toshi, I jumped in, and the next thing I knew, it was just slow motion. I was like 3-4 foot in the air, just horizontal, because he just foot swept me. And in that moment, I just said to myself, that was so good. Like, just so good. And you've got to respect it.
Yeah, like when you get someone that effortlessly throws you in judo, you just suddenly find yourself in the air.
I think there's something special about a foot sweep.
Yeah,
there's something so special about like that timing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you do find yourself like I'm just up in the air all of a sudden. I have no idea how I got here. Like I'm literally flying. Yeah, it's like in those films where you got bullet time where they're like, in Matrix when they're dodging the bullet. It's like that. You're just up in the air like, This is me now. Like,
there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. I will just sail this way, and that will be it. Randomly, it's not really like current events, or at least not big time current events. But earlier today, David from our gym sent me a thing saying that 2 women in the US. Now, it's not cordyceps, but they called it the Last of Us fungal infection.
Oh, here we go.
So basically, like I think it's antibiotic or antibacterial resistant infection that they've got that they're struggling to clear. This is the one. So it is starting. So remember, one bite and that is it. You're going to be like a quadriceps zombie, so steer clear of them.
This is what I want to talk to you about then, based off that. Have you come across the Ultimate Self-Defense Championships on YouTube?
No.
Right, have you come across a guy before called Martial Arts Journey? So
That actually rings a bell.
he was an Aikido guy, and the premise behind it is he challenged an MMA fighter, and like a very humble dude. He said, I want to see if my Aikido works in a fight, because he taught a massive school. He had this sparring session with this MMA guy, and he just got tuned up, obviously. And as a result of that, he quit Aikido.
All right.
Closed his school, started a YouTube channel, and basically travelled trying to learn different martial arts. Had a few MMA fights, trained with Kavanagh and things. Like he's an okay martial artist now, right? But he started this thing called Ultimate Self-Defense Championships, where he got loads of martial arts YouTubers.
Yeah.
Got them in a room and then did there's certain self-defense scenarios that's run by this. Oh mate, it's mind-blowing.
That sounds pretty fun, to be fair.
One of the scenarios, they wake up and two people are on them and you've got to try and survive. But one of them, there's a coach, Ramsey Dewey, who's based in China. And one of the scenarios, you open your eyes and the guy's got a knife to your throat.
Yeah.
And you see like Jeff Chan, the MMA fighter, like tries to slip at elbow and like wrestles him and gets shanked. But Ramsey Dewey just did it the best. He goes, "What do you want?" He's like, "Do you want my wallet?" There you go. He's like, "Great," and the guy walks off, because it's run by these guys who are about de-escalating the situations.
Yeah.
But what surprised me the most today was, well, it didn't surprise me, but the scenario was you get 5 rounds of 20-second knife attacks.
Okay.
And you've got to see how many times you get stabbed. Out of all 5 of them doing it, at 5 rounds, only 1 round didn't end without them dying. And I thought that was just really cool to see, like, these open-minded, like, martial artists actually exploring real-life conflict situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was mad.
I was going to say that when it comes to like knife, your best defense is probably going to be to run, because the room for error is pretty small. You know, you're gonna probably end up getting shanked.
My old jiu-jitsu club, they used to teach knife defense, and his start of the class one day, he goes, "Hands up here, who's been stabbed?" And I'm like, "What have I come to? What class have I come to?" He's like, "Yeah, you do this," and I'm like, "No. I'm just going to throw that out and we'll go back to gi chokes, thanks."
Yeah. Well, it's like there was a thing when it comes to like samurais, like, you know, in the films you see like a lot of like, apparently it's not so much like there's not a lot of deflection. It's pretty much like one strike.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which it kind of tracks when you watch a sport like kendo, for example, which is basically like armored samurai.
Yeah.
It's very quick. It's done. You know,
and it's normally one counter strike followed by an attack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad.
So like, that's like best case scenario is if someone has a knife and you also have a knife, it's still going to be a relatively quick scenario. One of you's getting stabbed. So if one of you has a knife, being your attacker, and you don't have a knife, your chances are not great. I would say.
Oh no, it was mad. It was mad. Like, once there were times where they'd hold him down. He took, when he won. So in the scenario where he didn't die, this was actually the Aikido guy, and there's other better martial artists than him. But he held him down in full mount, and the guy was just like scratching the knife in his throat. But the guy said to him, like, "You'd probably got some nice like scarring, but it was nothing serious." And you just think, when I was actually watching it, and because this was a scenario where they weren't allowed to run, I was just thinking, like, this is how I die. An absolutely terrifying situation. One that I'm definitely ill-equipped for.
Yeah. It's like, because the thing is, as much as you train like a knife defense, it's like, okay, your attacker's going to come in and hit a very specific. It's like, it's not. It's generally going to be someone that runs up and just like.
And that was it. When he held them down, or like he gets any position, because if they're fighting for the knife, they'll just change hands.
Yeah.
And then some of them were getting stabbed like 36 times.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. So yeah. If you do show up to my gym looking for knife defense, my best knife defense I could give you would be to buy a gun, and then you'll probably be okay. And if the person has a longer range gun, then you're fucked, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there was something else I wanted to chat to you about. Again, it's like gone out of my mind. Oh yeah, so this is another random thing. So for those of you that know me will know that I'll dabble in Twitter generally just to annoy myself. I'll go like
And you occasionally send me quotes from a specific person just to also try and drag me into this. Yeah.
Said a specific person is now off of Twitter.
I've heard of this, yeah.
Funny enough, but I found a new thing to annoy myself over.
Great, yeah.
So Lawrence Fox.
They ran for politics. He ran for mayor of London.
Yeah. So he's in a massive beef with this guy called Mukhtar, who called him out for being racist. I can't remember what happened, and then Lawrence Fox has emailed him directly like, you have like 24 hours to put a public apology or I'm gonna sue you. And then Mukhtar like messaging back like, go suck your mother sort of thing, which is freaking hilarious. And it's just been going on for days, and I cannot get enough. And like, from what I can tell from Lawrence Fox, he's generally like your typical right wing kind of grifter who just like, I don't think he said anything like overtly or at least obviously racist, although there's a lot of like, you can make an argument that a lot of what he's saying is racist, but you couldn't like highlight any particular thing as being like that type of thing.
There's a theme.
Yeah, it's a lot of like shock value stuff. It's a typical thing, like, but he's doing the thing of like saying these things to get a reaction, and when people say, "Oh, you're racist," he calls the victim card, like, "Oh no, you can't say that to me." That type of thing. But then I just go through all the comments, and I'm just like, "Why am I doing this?"
Did you see Mac? Have you heard of someone called Max Vosh?
No.
So Lawrence Fox and Max Vosh went to school together in Eton, and then what happened is when he ran for mayor, Max Vosh was like, "Well, I'm going to run for mayor," and he started this YouTube channel and just trolling him, and it was so funny. He's gotten really famous from it, and he's made quite a lot of money and good videos off YouTube. But he'd turn up to Lawrence Fox's video and saying like he used to beat him in the debate team and wind him up, and like there were times when he videoed him, because there's a point where the candidates had to meet for the results, and they caught a snippet of the clip where Lawrence Fox like catching aside by the mic, somebody's like, "You're a little cunt," and they were saying like really going for him. Like he showed his true colours big time there.
Oh yeah. He's just like, he seems a bit fragile considering like how much he gives it. He is very fragile.
But do you not find those ones who always claim that everyone else plays the victim is also incredibly fragile? Like Piers Morgan, for example, is quite fragile.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there was another one that made me laugh. It was someone that was wearing like they were wearing a sign. I don't know what the sign says, but looking at their profile, it's going to be something like anti-trans.
Yeah.
And we're in Oxford, and they're like, "Oh, I got roughly accosted by these trans activists, and they bruised my shins." And it's like, bro, it sounds like you're just a bit too soft for the world. You know, you're walking around.
Don't be a snowflake.
Yeah, it's just like as much as I hate the term like man up. This is someone that you need to say, just man up to.
But it's like I think I sent you that Instagram video about that. I thought it was a trolling, but it's actually real. Where she's like, your words are, what did she say?
Violence.
Your words are violence. I'm like, no, she just asked you to change the bin.
Yeah. I remember that one. It's like, oh, you spoke to me like really violently. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I showed that to my wife, and she's like, if you talk to me like that, I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah, it's just so patronising.
It's awful.
Yeah. See, my only advice would be in this scenario, like, other than don't be a prick trying to agitate people deliberately. If you are being a prick trying to agitate people deliberately, at least have the stones to be able to back it up. If you go out of your way to try and agitate people and get a reaction, and you get a reaction, and your first reaction to that reaction is to cry, then you're too soft, and you should come attend some of my classes where we can beat you up a bit and toughen you up, because you need it.
Yeah,
that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know why. Like, as bad as it sounds, soft people, like, it's just, there's something about it that can wind me up, especially if that soft person talks a lot. Like, if you're running away at the mouth and you can't back it up, you're the worst kind of person. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I feel personally attacked, know that I probably don't like you. That's what I want you to know. I probably don't like you at all.
I don't know what to add to that. That was quite a direct.
I'm probably have a DM swarming it. I'm not attacked by that.
Good.
Yeah.
Doesn't like you.
You're too soft. I don't like you. Outside of that, Tom, people want to. Broken Matt obviously getting massively busy over in Murfield. I don't expect you to know the address off by heart, but the tag for that is
Broken Matt BJJ.
Sweet. If people want to follow you directly,
Tom_Walker_physio.
if you're watching this on my Insta, obviously you know where to find me. It's at B_strong_PT_. If you want to follow what I'm using more now is like my private or my BJJ account at Hippo BJJ. Generally going to be a mix of jiu-jitsu and memes. And if you're lucky enough to be on my close friends list, it's generally like horrific memes that I won't share with like the wider public. But that's only for a select few people that can stomach like the terrible
If
memes.
you want to have access to that, and we'll put a link to Costas's Patreon underneath.
Yeah, that is good. Send me some of that money, and then then I can
get his toes out for you.
yeah. If anyone does want to buy feet pictures or anything like that, then hook me up.
Before you end, there is something I have to tell you. I'm working with I'm getting some coaching at the moment, and someone who was saying that he works with makes £20,000 a week.
Jesus.
Right. And what does she do for £20,000 a week? Perfectly normal. She farts in jars and sends them to people. I respect that so much.
That's a pretty niche thing.
It's 20 grand a week.
Yeah, I could probably
I have no problem with doing that. I'd do a lot more for 20 grand a week.
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
That's like, yeah. Like I've known people that sell like their old underwear and stuff like that and make it. Like,
so big in Japan, is that, isn't it?
Is it?
You can there's vending machines in certain parts and cities where people will like sell their used underwear, and you can
That's so bizarre,
isn't it?
That does make me think.
What's Steve saying?
I think I've found my new career.
Yeah, I think you have, mate.
Yeah, that's like I think that's where we've been missing the trick. You know, all like jiu-jitsu and physio as a way of life and as an income. It's basically farting in jars, OnlyFans and underwear sales.
My wife's got really nice feet, but I'm not particularly like, I'm fairly indifferent about feet. But we've had several conversations about potentially starting an OnlyFans.
See, I've got bizarre feet. So my feet will be like kind of like niche. There'll be like a really like specific subset of foot fans that would like them.
Why I'm selling Gillian's feet, for any of you interested in foot fetishes, she's got very good feet. They're very dexterous, but she can cross all of her toes individually and uncross them.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah. I know, it's bad.
That's like...
Yeah. So we could build that into something. There's definitely some value to be gained from
You could probably get like OnlyFans videos of her like peeling bananas with them and all that kind of stuff. Like, you'd be like, that'd be amazing.
If it's phallic shaped as well.
That's like, people like this is next week we see Tom just rocking up in a new Merc.
That's why.
Yeah,
it's got nothing to do with my professionalism.
Outside of all that, obviously, after this, I'm going to upload this to YouTube. If you haven't watched this live, you'll catch this on YouTube or on Spotify or on Apple. So if you just look for Be Strong Podcast, give us a follow, like, subscribe. All helps. Boost our numbers, and we can get some sponsors and make some big bucks. So me and Tom should be bowling around with like Rolexes and all that.
Yeah, because that's how I live my life.
Yeah, just like full send the whole time. There's like something really like, there was like one specific thing that like popped into my mind and that's gone out again, and I do blame this on being punched numerous times when I was young, and also like playing loads of like Warhammer and like being hyper focused on fantasy realms at the minute. That was it. So randomly not related to Warhammer at all. I don't know if I told you, remember that there was a point in time, I don't even know if there's any left now, but HMV was shutting down shop.
Yeah, I remember it,
So that was how long? That was like 7 years ago. More than that. 10 years more.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe around that time.
It was a long ass time ago. So during that time when HMV was closing, I just strolled in to see what they've got. Found the box set of 24, all of them, which I hadn't watched since I was in uni, so like 18, 19.
How many series was that?
8.
Did you watch it in 6 hours?
So you know what I'm going to
6 days.
So I've just started. So I bought that box set probably 8 years ago or more. I've only just started watching it now. I've hammered through the first season, and I'm on the last episode of the second season.
Nice.
And that was generally, so basically, when I've got a competition coming up, I get like hyper focused to the point where I'm very drained. And then in the evening, Rowan's gone to bed. Hayley tends to go to bed earlier than me. I'll be up watching, like, hammering through 24. In the actual, like few days before the match, she'll generally be at her mum's because I'm just generally going to be off training and all this. So I'll be, like, at the gym, doing clients, and when I'm not doing that, I'm watching 24. So I've just hammered through about 48 hours worth of TV in like 2 weeks or something.
Do you go to sleep with that clock beeping?
Yeah, beep, beep. I wanted to actually put like my my ringtone as that. The CTU. Boop, 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 I wanted that.
I made a joke about the time because I went to college with a lad who was just trying so hard all the time. He was like, yeah, I got the new series of 24. I was like, I watched it all in 12 hours. I'm like, did you?
Yeah. I don't think you understand how time works, my friend. And like I say, it is good. It's like, see, the screen work's a bit dated now and stuff like that, but as the seasons go on, it obviously kind of modernizes. But yeah, it's very much like America, but it is a good
for freedom.
Watch.
For freedom and justice.
Yeah, but it's worth a watch. It is good. So on that note, I'll probably spend the rest of my evening either watching 24 or playing Warhammer. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to end the live feed here now, and then I'm going to say goodbye to everyone on Instagram. But we'll catch you at the next one, guys. Thanks for listening.
See you later.